Polka dot door, the polka dot door. Let's peep through the polka dot door. Songs and stories and so much more. Through the polka dot door, this is the time we always say. Get ready, get set for Imagination Day. We'll tell some tales, we'll pretend and play. So come in the polka dot way.
Welcome, everybody, to Season 2 premiere of today's podcast. Boy, do we ever have a show in store for you today. I can't say the words polka dot door without putting a smile on my face. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, Polka Dot Door was an amazing show. Taught music, taught reading, taught getting together, songs, the whole 9 yards. And I'm very, very, very proud for the very first Season 2 premiere of today's special to have some of the hosts and producer of Polka Dot Door. We have Carrie Loring, right over there. We have Jim Codrington, Jed MacKay, and Jane Luke of Polka Dot Door. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Season 2.
So happy to be here.
Hello.
Thanks, Kevin.
Oh man, it is such an honor to talk to all of you. It really is. I'm seeing you now through adult eyes, but I remember you through being a child and just sitting here talking with you. I have visions of you on the show holding, Bear and Marigold and Humpty and Dumpty and all that sort of stuff. And I sitting in and there's Polkaroo, right? Sitting in the story time chair and reading me stories when I was a kid. Oh man, this is so cool. So let's start off with right at the start. Okay. The audition process, because I know Polka Dot Door was on since like the early 70s, right? So I know that, but what was your audition process? We'll go individual audition. I know Jed doesn't have to talk about auditions because he wrote the show, but but what about the other three? What about your audition process? Let's start with Jim.
Okay. Well, it was interesting. It was fairly early in my career. And I remember we went to the Unitarian Church just not far from where I am here on St. Clair and Avenue Road. And we did some scripts in front of Jed and we sang the song. What I particularly remember was, maybe this is a secret I haven't told the rest of you guys yet. I didn't really know the show until I auditioned. Okay, because
Wow.
and you young folk won't remember this like Kevin, but back then there were stations you could get and stations you couldn't get, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know about you guys, but I couldn't get Channel 19. My wife was familiar with the show and everything about it. And so she kind of had to teach me the song. She had to teach me how to do the whole, how to tell time, the whole dynamics of it. She was kind of aghast that I didn't know, but I would say that the reason I'm on the show is in no small part due to the assistance of my dear wife / manager.
I understand that. The reason why this show goes on is because of the same reason. So I totally get it.
Precisely.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
Carrie, what about you?
Well, I remember that my sister was with Global News for a long period of time, and she was interviewing Gary Richardson, who ran the live show of Polka Dot Door, and who was, in fact, one of the earlier hosts on Polka Dot Door. And so she said to him, my sister does children's theater, and how can she get onto this show? And he said, oh, you have to get on the television show first. And she said, oh, well, how does one do that? And he gave the magic name to my sister, which said on it, Jed MacKay. And so I'm madly calling TV Ontario to find out who this person is and scored an audition and was kind of nervous about it, although I had done a lot of kids theater, so I knew I could do this. But it was an audition that encompassed so many facets. This is what I always remember, is that, so you had to sing, you had to speak a little bit in French, you had to move and dance a little bit. They threw a little dancing with you. They even had a section that you had to improv. I remember mine involved sugar, that there was sugar all over a piece of paper, and I had to respond to it and say what I was doing. And what else? Let me see. There were just all the, definitely sing, dance, French, improvisation. And I've told this story before, that when I left that audition, mine was at Glebe Road, not at the Unitarian where we ended up rehearsing, but I left that audition. I just went, what a great bunch of people. Of course, the late, great John Arpin was there, and Jed. And I went away going, I have got that job. I know I have it. I did great. And then by the time I walked in my door at home, 10 minutes later, I was crying. And I went, I was so bad. Like, what was I thinking? I'm like, I can't act, I can't sing. I'm useless.
Same with me.
Imposter syndrome.
I was so insecure by the time I got home. So by the time George Bourne, the casting director from TV Ontario, called me, and even that, I've told this story before too, but even that was pretty funny, because he phoned me and said, how tall are you? Which was on my resume. And I answered, and he said, okay, thanks. And that's all he said to me. And it was all because they were going to pair me with Jonathan Whitaker, who was super tall. And so they wanted to make sure that I was, in fact, maybe a little taller than what I looked like. I don't know. But but then I got the job, and it was so absolutely thrilled. But
Did they have to put platforms in your shoes to make you a little taller?
no, I just stood really tall. And it is funny show, though, because it looks like there's like about a foot between us, and I'm looking way up at Jonathan.
Like he's a friendly giant.
Jane, what about you? What was your audition like?
Oh, sorry, I missed that. You're talking to me?
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, okay. So I was in the last 2 seasons, and I auditioned in the office. I remember I was in an office.
Oh.
And so it was interesting, because I was also kind of sort of novice level in my career. And I remember Karen Hazard called me, who was the casting director, who was casting, and I was brought in. And yes, all those things that Carrie just said, you had to learn you had to sing for the audition, I had to sing, I had to be able to read, I had to relate with toys that didn't really talk back. So I had to use my imagination. So I remember afterwards, I didn't think it, I just thought, there's probably 100 people there auditioning. I'm just one of the statistics. And I went home, didn't even think anything about it. I don't think I even got that, because I didn't feel, I didn't see anybody else there. So I wasn't really sure like who else, because usually when you go into auditions, you see the other people lined up outside the door, ready to go in. But I remember we were in an office, and so it was kind of informal. And I had a really good conversation, and it was at the TV Ontario offices. And then that was it. I didn't think anything more of it. And then I was just so surprised when my agent called and said, "You booked it." I went, "What?" I had no clue. And then and she said, "Well, congratulations." And Karen Hazard even called me and said, "Good for you. This is great. This is going to really set you off." And for my career is what she meant. So I thought, oh, okay, all right. So so anyway, that was my audition and my way into Polka Dot Door.
Wow. Those are some pretty awesome stories. I like those. And after that, history's done, right? You guys went on and inspired generations of children. Like, I'm living proof. I'm right here. I've never forgotten you guys, and you guys have always been in my head, everybody. Now, Jed, do you remember any of these auditions?
No, I don't remember any of them. Yeah, no, I do.
He's trying to forget.
The thing that is, my take on the show is always a bit different than a performer's take, we'll say. But what people don't realize, what we were looking for when we were casting hosts of Polka Dot Door were performers who really had a really wide mix of talents. The show is not easy to do. That's the first thing I'm going to say.
That's true.
And I've had a lot of people say to me, "Oh, well, what's so tough? They just sit there and they talk, like they just make it up as they're going along type thing." And I said, actually, it's the other way around. That show is so tightly scripted, you have no idea. We use a vocabulary that could be understood by a 2 to 3 year old, but we wouldn't limit the subject matter. So the subject matter might be the solar system. It might be jazz. There was all sorts of things we talk about. And we had to do it in that language. So there was very little opportunity to improvise, actually. Improvisation is a skill we needed performers to be able to do, because it's the show we were shooting 5 shows in 3 days.
Wow.
So 2 days rehearsal, 3 days of shoot. It's very intense. There's a lot of, it's just going one after the other. And so we had to have performers who could do that, performers who could read a story as you would read it to a child. So that's another skill they had to be able to do. You had to be able to play, the challenge of looking at, what's that bear, what's that marigold, and all that. Having that conversation was, you had to have performers who could do that and make you believe they were playing, because that's how kids play. The younger kids play like that. And so every skill, and singing, of course, you had to be able to sing and all those things. And ultimately, everybody had to have the indefinable quality, the umami, of performing, which is they had to just have a warmth, and they had to be, I don't know how else to put it. You had to feel they could be, I don't know, older brother or sister, aunt, uncle, or something, friend. You had to believe they were friends ultimately. And so that's why it was actually, to be cast on the show was really a signal that you had a tremendous range, a wide range of talents that were good for the show. And I think they weren't really understood except by people who are making the show. I'll put it that way. The show comes across as very informal, and it's meant, very casual. The rhythms are all very conversational, but in fact, tightly scripted. And I think Carrie, Jim, and Jane will say, there's sort of one sequence after another where you have to remember that you're on 2 for this, but you're making the little thing you're making over here on 1, and there's a close-up over. Trying to just remember the cameras, but show after show after show after show after sequence of all the things we're doing. That was really intense. So everybody's very special. Very, very, say to Jane and Jim and Carrie, but anybody who was on the show really was, to me, a very special person to be able to deliver that to a children's audience.
I would have to agree. I would agree with that. What were you going to say, Jim?
Well, I would say that the other thing about it, so Jed is absolutely right. Yeah, I think Jane and Carrie, you would agree it was a very, very stressful performance.
Intense.
Very intense. So intense. Yeah. But Jed was as cool as could be. John, was cool on the piano, playing in between. And so as intense as it was, and as he said, you had to remember all those scripts. You had to remember your camera angle. So you say, you start off saying, I think it's time to go visit Storytime Mouse. I wonder what he's doing. So you go to camera. And so you had to remember, you had written in your script, how you'd switch from camera to camera. You had to remember all the songs and all the little choreography that went along with it. And you had 5 of these shows in your head. And they're very similar. So yes. You're like, am I on Tuesday show or Friday show? So it was a real challenge to remain focused and yet to seem kind of light and breezy, and as Jed was saying, comfortable and happy when in your, the hamster in the wheel is just running like crazy to try to stay up with the requirements of the show.
Can I just about when I got the script a month ahead, no word of a lie, was like a phone book. I was like, I have to learn all of this. was like a phone book's worth of scripts. And yeah, exactly, Jim, when you were saying hot and cold. So every show started with a game song. And I was like, is this hot and cold? Is this today's hot and cold? Or is this tomorrow's hot and cold? Yeah. Oh, and I never, on our breaks, I never took the break because I thought I can't to get out of the zone. I had to just eat, get my food, and just go through, like, just keep going through my script.
Now, when I don't know, Jed may be able to answer. You guys will be able to answer it. When you guys get your script, now the shows were broken down into different days, right? Today's Thursday, for example. Today would be Imagination Day on the show. Did you break the shows down into days? Like you had to do certain things on Imagination Day and certain things on Animal Day and whatnot?
Yeah, every day had I think every day had one element that was specific to that day. So, if you thought about it, the pets are on Animal Day and Polkaroo on Imagination Day, and there was always a sort of a science element, some kind of discovery element on Finding Out Day. Obviously, Dressing Up Day was used for dress up games, and the Treasure Day was introducing the theme. Every week had a theme, which was only, I think, specifically mentioned in the Song of the Week. So they'd always say, we're doing our Song of the Week, and it's whatever it was, hot and cold. Otherwise, every segment in every show would be about that theme, but we wouldn't necessarily make it explicit. It was just part of what was going on, because you're trying to make it flow as if one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another organically. But you're going to have a sequence where you're making some kind of craft. There's going to be a song, there's going to be a story, there's going to be a Through the Polka Dot Door. All those things are, it's like weaving. You sort of would weave the theme of the day through all the segments you've got to put in, but try to make it seem like they're just happening organically as you go along.
Well, go ahead, Carrie.
Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I was going to say on the idea of making the difficult look easy. I always remember being outside in the backyard, and I think this was with Johnny, and we had to sing Old MacDonald. So in your script, this looks like the easiest thing in the world, and I really didn't worry about it much because I thought it was going to be easy. But as Jim mentioned before, there were moments where I would point to a picture, and David, the director, was wanting a close-up of my hand pointing, and every verse, of course, was different. So this verse, there was the point. Another verse, was singing to Johnny on a 2-shot, and every verse was different. And so, and then they threw in, John Arpin threw in a bunch of harmonies. Now, again, not hard, but I didn't know them, so the harmonies were in my head. And anyway, I remember I was usually pretty good, could do a lot of things in one take. And I think Jed will agree with that. But that song, I could not. And I think it was the most takes that I had ever done in my life. And I remember Kevin, the cameraman, at one point, and I thought, oh man, I'm really in trouble, because I remember his head going, I remember just looking down going, why can this woman not do Old MacDonald? And it's because I had so much I was doing. And I should add to that there was Jebette, the wonderful props person. She was amazing. And she was once, Jed had her come on as a rock climber, I think it was.
Yes, she was a rock climber.
As a guest, but she was normally our props person. And at the end of that show, she came to me and to Johnny, and she said, I owe you an apology. And we went, why? And she said, because I had no idea that what you were doing on camera was that difficult.
Oh, wow.
So, and it was a matter of making it look easy, and it never was.
It never was.
That's a testament to you guys, right? That's a testament to you and your abilities and your talent to make a show like that. That's very obviously, very difficult to do. Make it look like it's a walk in the park, right?
And I would two things. I would say that that's part of performing. Part of performing is the actual artistry of creating a character, telling a story, so on and so forth, singing a song. But then another aspect of it, I want to say like 30% is how you deal with pressure. How you deal with pressure when you've done a particularly long sequence and you've messed it up twice, and people are doing this and this kind of thing. No, they never did that. Actually, they were always very supportive and understanding. But the pressure is really on you, and in that way, this was really great preparation for acting after that point, because I gotta say that I started to work more after I did Polka Dot Door, and everything was like a walk in the park after these days on the door, which were just intense. It's a ton of material, it's a ton of pressure, and you've got to make it look easy. Before I forget, I wanted to say that another wonderful element of the show is that Jed was not only producer, he was writing songs, right? He wrote all these great songs that, they were, so beautiful melodically, thematically, the word usage and everything, that you would assume that they were just children's song from the lexicon of all great children's songs. So that was another great element of the show.
I would so agree with that. Sorry, I would so agree, because
go ahead, Carrie.
Jed and I have talked many times about how these songs really should be recorded, and I've secretly told, I work with the Bach Children's Chorus now, and I have stolen no, I didn't steal. I respectfully used
co-created.
And but I have to say, like, I took every single week, this is a tiny group of kids, and I used the hello song and the goodbye song. I've just changed a couple of things so they don't use the toys names. And I can make a list now of the songs that I've used, but and again, this is just a small group. We're just sitting in a room, we warm up, we practice, and they are just such beautiful songs. Thanks, Jed.
Yeah, thank you.
I say that just in terms of the ease, is that the way the things were written about how we made our crafts. Because I remember I had friends would ask me, because we had to cut out, I remember we were making puzzles, we had to cut out the pieces. They said, yeah, but you made that part up. I said, no, like that's all written. Now we're going to cut around here. And all those instructions were written in such a way that it sounded like it came from us. So a lot of that also was in the writing and helping with the ease that you saw on screen. And in terms of when you, that I'd never had to do it like this before when we were on set, which was, they said, no, we keep shooting until there's a mistake. So I thought, I hope I'm not the one who makes that mistake. So we would just like keep going.
No pressure. No pressure.
It's true.
Yeah. Oh, you talk about focus. I was like, okay, I'm looking at camera 2. Okay, this is camera 3, and then just had to relax. And I've had a lot of years of improv, so I had to really get my skills of being in the moment. And if something went wrong, blow it off. Just forget it. Let it just move off of you, and just new moment, reset. So it really helped me to implement my improv skills in that way, in a major way. But yeah, Jed, like, no pressure. We'll just keep going. And Garth, it was my first year with Garth. It was both of our first time. So talk about nerve-wracking. I thought, I can't ask him how this is supposed to go, because it's his first time as well. So here are these two newbies going, I hope I don't blow it. And like, so just kept going and going. Oh, I don't know if you remember that. Like, well, I'm sure you remember that. But yeah, it just, boy, did it ever strengthen your stamina for like, just keep moving and moving and moving. So.
Did you guys, I know Jed earlier said that the show was tightly scripted, but it's a good segue. Did you have to improv anything? Like, was there any improvisation at all?
I don't know if you guys remember the line when you'd be on set and you'd think that everything was going well. And then Peter, the floor director, would say, Jed's coming down.
Uh-oh.
Do you remember that? And Jed's coming down, so he's leaving the mobile unit to come and see what's going on. And the one I particularly remember, and this has to the point of improvising, is that Johnny and I were playing a card game, and they were kind of large cards, and we were playing this game, and we were trying to do it by the script. And what wasn't working for Jed was that it didn't look real, but he also wanted the hosts to, I'm going to split an infinitive here, to not be perfect. He didn't want everything to be tidy and neat. And so he finally said, you know what, let's put the script aside. And I just want you to play the game. And if something goes wrong and you don't get it, then go, oh, I wanted that one, next time kind of thing. And you just sort of that. So that's the one that I remember that we put the script aside often on things where maybe you couldn't put the script aside if a camera angle was really imperative, because you couldn't be looking the wrong way, because then you'd hear cut. But playing a game where there was a 2-shot and you saw both of us playing, we could kind of have fun with that and make it look, real, which it then was.
I think I'm going to jump in, excuse me, just because you're reminding me of another element that was important, which was that one of the key elements of the show, from my perspective as the producer of it, was that the show had to be saying yes, in a sense, to every child who was watching. So the fact of it is that when kids, little kids play games, they make mistakes, things don't work, things happen. And that was the improv skill, the ability to react to what's actually happening, and not freak out about it, and why you wait till someone calls cut rather than stop and say, oh, I blew it, is because that is what happens. You're trying to make stuff, you're trying to play games, even like that card game. If it's too perfect, that isn't how it goes when you're a little kid. That's not how it works. And by the same token, we had, across the board, we had a tremendous crew. TV Ontario really had great people all along the line, but we had a tremendous dedicated crew at every level. And the props department, Jabat and Michiko and a couple others, were so good at taking stuff, because one of the rules was you could only use things found in an average household. Yeah. So, that's why there's so many Kleenex boxes and toilet tissue rolls and paper towel rolls and whatever else we could come up with, because we wanted the show to be a show that was sort of a springboard for every child and whatever interest they wanted to pursue. So the fact of it is, if a child, a 3-year-old or 4-year-old wants to make a castle out of Kleenex boxes and toilet tissue rolls, it is not necessarily going to look like it was made by a professional props person. So we instructed the props people to, that was one of the things we were trying to do. Don't make it look so perfect that no child will ever be able to duplicate it. Do what it's actually going to look like. That's why the crafts look the way they do. That's why a lot of what we did, as Carrie's saying, if something went wrong, the ability to improvise was crucial, because you could just react normally and naturally. You didn't, have to get upset that the scene was going to have to be done again, because we might not do it again, as we're saying. And like Carrie says, don't make it too perfect. One little thing I want to add quickly, just about the crew. I know it's more of a producer's interest, but we had a song. Carrie and Johnny were doing a song. And the song was called The Little Flea, which I know, Carrie, you probably remember. And The Little Flea is one of those things where you add, there's a flea, then there's a fly and a dog and a cat, and it sort of builds and builds and builds. But the chorus of it was, you had to go snip, snap, tick, tack, elbow and a knee or something. Anyway, there were some little motions you had to do. So we were, rehearsing it, I guess, and someone in the crew, they come down and watch while we're doing it. And someone said to me, well, that looks so easy to do. That's way too easy to do. And I said, okay, why don't you do it with them then? He said, okay, I will, And so when they came to it, he tried to do it. And of course he blew it. And it was just, whatever it was, he couldn't get it.
Snip,
and so the rest
snap,
of the crew,
elbow and a knee. He just said, you can't
catch me. And so by the end of that sequence, the fifth time we did the song, that was a song of the week. So by the fifth time we did it, the entire crew, anybody who wasn't on a camera basically was sitting there trying to do it. And of course, they're getting all tied up, and trying to figure out how to do these simple little motions. But it was kind of just like, to me, it was like the most supportive big family or something. We had not only the Peter Newman, who was, fantastic as a floor director, but John Arpin was a virtuoso piano player. I've never encountered anybody like him in my life. David Moore, Carol Jones. I could go on through the entire crew, but I do have to do a shout out to the whole TVO team, both in the office and on the floor, because you couldn't have done it without them.
If it wasn't for them, none of us would be here right now.
Well, it's true. And the thing is, you don't realize how important it is for the crew to be supporting what's going on. If you have someone on the crew who thinks, oh, this stupid thing that I'm doing, or, whatever they might think, or as Carrie says, someone sort of going like, another time on Old McDonald's? Wow. I mean, if you have people who are, really making that attitude obvious, it actually really hurts the show.
Yeah.
So you can't have that on the floor at all. And we didn't. We had not only was the cast, to my mind, extraordinary, but all along the line, we had such a great team. It was a really, really, really good experience making it. And I think it shows in the shows.
They were not only such talented people themselves, every single person there, but they were also really lovely people who supported you on breaks and were always laughing at the things and moving along. And absolutely amazing cast behind the scenes.
I remember when you mentioned Javette. I remember we did one where we had ice cream, and we had these ice cream cones, and I was like, and they weren't melting. I thought, how? And I had to ask her, and she had this beautiful Parisian French accent, I remember. And so I said, how, what is it? She goes, oh, it's a mashed potato. And so she says, you just make the mashed potato. I just remember the way she said that. I was like, wow. And so anyway, it was just so great that she was willing to just share, and everyone, it was a real family. That was a feeling that I got for sure, like a tight crew. Yeah.
And that was, sorry, I just wanted to add.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that I think was part of the magic of the show and the genius of the show is that I think the child watching was meant to feel like it was just someone in their living room, right? Just we're telling stories, we're singing songs, we're playing with stuffed animals and that kind of thing. We're telling the time. And so on set, it felt like we were just in our living room, right? We were all comfortable. And, Jed just mentioned John Arpin. The music, if you go back and listen with your adult ears, you will realize that we were all incredibly spoiled to have such genius on the keyboard. And I will always remember when I walked in on my first day of rehearsal, and John would just improvise it between in between practicing and that kind of thing. And I was like, what is that? It was just incredibly beautiful. And as it turns out we were alumni of the same school, John and I, so we got to be very friendly over the years. But that was very instrumental in making it feel like, okay, this is just a fun, comfortable, wonderful living room for all of the performers, for all of the crew, and for anybody who's lucky enough to be watching and listening.
It's unfortunate that I just want to, but John Arpin's story, Kevin, is that I had nodules that year, vocal nodules. Oh. And I didn't tell anyone, so I thought, I don't want to get fired. So John, I said, I can't hit that range. And so, and Garth, I didn't tell anyone, but Garth and John both said, how about this range? And he would just transpose like that. And just a genius, just such a beautiful musician for sure. So anyway.
And he could flip to any style that Jed would throw at him. So he would say, you know what, I think this might work better as a Gilbert and Sullivan type piece. So you know, and he said, you know what, that's not working. We need a calypso feel. You know, and right away, new key, but also just to have a show like Polka Dot Door and then add this element to it that was unbelievable genius musicianship was our complete treasure and pleasure.
Yeah. And on the spot, he was creating those things, right? He was creating those feels, and he's watching what you're doing. And I'll always remember my first year, you know, I was doing this thing where I was on a swing. So I had to, you know, go down and then come up, this kind of thing. And he just did his thing on the piano. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like to be on a swing. It feels exactly like that. You know, it was brilliant.
Yeah, I'm going to say one thing about John, if I can, too, because John was, in my opinion, a true virtuoso. You know, he could play anything. He could play opera scores from memory. He could play any style of music, and he was a world-class and championship ragtime player as well.
Ragtime.
Wow.
But when we would do the film sequence, when you go through the Polka Dot Door and you've got about a 4 to 5 minute film sequence, when we recorded the music for those, that was done in the studio at TV Ontario. John would come in and he and I would watch the film once. And he'd sort of go through and look at it and watch it. And they'd say, what do you hear? What do you hear here? So I might say, well, you know, I'm kind of hearing Mozart, a little Mozart-y thing there because it's a little mechanical, but ragtimey to show some of the gearing and, you know, whatever the sequence was. And he'd say, okay, you know, and say, well, let's go. We'd start. And he would do one take virtually every time.
Yeah.
And he'd hit it dead on. He'd hit the little cues, you know, when something was happening, he'd pick that up with what he was playing. He would start and finish exactly where we had to be. And he had to be, I think, start maybe 3 seconds late and finish 3 seconds early to let us transition the thing into the show. He never missed. It was, honestly, it was jaw-dropping. And to be able to work with someone at that level was really extraordinary. And prior to him, it was a guy named Herbie Helbig, who was another virtuoso piano player. So that was one of the hidden elements of the show. I think, as Jim said, when you put your adult ears on, your listening ears, and hear what's actually being played, it's extraordinary. I mean, it sounds, again, like the entire show. It just sounds so simple, sounds a little low tech, you know, just a piano. Instead, there's really some beautiful things going on there.
And, you know, we were asked to bring some kind of recording device to our rehearsals. And when I think about the fact that I have a box of original audio of John Arpin playing these beautiful Jed songs, and us, you know, him saying, you know, I'm going to put that up, Carrie, it's a bit low for you. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, it's still not high enough. Transpose without any note in front of him. And I just keep thinking if there's a way to, you know, get some of these tapes transferred, because they're just gorgeous.
There are. We can talk about that later.
We will.
All right. Now I wanted to talk about the music, but you guys covered that so beautifully. So beautifully. But I do have to ask, it was all live, wasn't it?
Yes.
Was John playing the piano, and every time you would sing the songs, it was all live, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's mind-boggling to me. You know, like, that's mind-boggling. It's every time I was on set for anything that I would do in my past career, it was all piped in, right? It was all piped in, or it would be in your inner ear and you would hear it and you'd just be singing out loud and there'd be no music playing. But when you saw the show, the music, it was all piped in, but you guys did it live.
John was in a booth, and he was watching a monitor as well as sort of seeing you live, and so he could play with that. But interesting thought that no one ever said, you know, no child ever asked, where's the piano player? Like, where's the guy who's playing? music magically appeared, and beautiful music. And it was just, you just started into song, or you said, that reminds me of a teapot or whatever. And John would go into the music, and just like any musical you might see on stage.
I would say I've used the word genius a couple times, but I gotta say, I gotta repeat it again, is that, basically television, particularly at that point, was a substitute for your normal playtime. And so the show was great, unlike, for instance, let's say Sesame Street or other shows, Electric Company, which are all high octane and pop references and really cool. This thing was so kind of organic to a child's experience, right? It was like you could step into that TV and it was no different than stepping into another room in your house. And so the design of the show, the execution of the show was so good, I feel, for supplementing a child's normal day-to-day interactions.
And to build on that, what Jim just said, and also touching on something Jed said, involving the kids, there were always questions to camera, and questions to camera didn't mean camera. You're looking at a child. So I'm going to look at the camera right now. And so you would do something and then just say, what do you think? How would you deal with this? Has this ever happened to you? So we would have direct questions to camera and leave the, a little pause for a child to say, yes, or whatever.
Well, I answered back.
Yeah. So we were always looking to the camera and for a reaction.
Yeah. We also never took it for granted you got the answer right.
That's true.
Going back to how the show was scripted, we would say, like Carrie's saying, what do you think this will be? It doesn't matter what it is. But then there's the pause. Then you say, if you answer green, you're right. Because some kid might have said red or might have said blue, and you didn't take it for granted they got it right. So you always left that leeway for, if that's what you answered, that would be right. In the same way, we never said things that you would find in your house. We said home, because a lot of kids don't live in a house. And we never said ask your mother or father. We always said ask a grown-up, because a lot of kids might not have a mother or a father or either. We never, you never knew. And so you were really creating a show for the widest possible spectrum of kids who were watching, taking nothing for granted about them or their situation, and trying to make everything, like I said earlier, this sort of springboard. So after the show, research would show that after the show, kids will, in their play, will manifest stuff they might have seen on the show. So we try to make everything a bit of a springboard for things if you wanted to do. If you wanted to play act, you could do that with your things. If you wanted to read stories, read them out loud with character voices, which is also another skill, sort of an improv skill in a way, to be able to do all the voices. So these are the elements at the base of the show. And it's funny because it goes you back to what were we looking for when we auditioned? It was for the rare talent that could actually pull all of that off and make it seem like they were making it up as it went along. Basically that was the skill that you can't fake, and you either can do it or you can't. We were so fortunate to have people that could do it and could connect with children directly through the medium of a camera, a television screen, and make you feel, as Kevin said beautifully, that you were right in the room with them. That was really what we were trying to do.
And because of that, you nailed that right on the head. You guys did it so beautifully that I've never forgotten. And I can tell you that nobody that ever watched the show ever forgot. The feedback that I would get when I would announce it to most people that, oh man, I'm talking to the people from the Polka Dot Door, they would go ballistic, be like, oh my God, I remember that show. See, nobody forgot the Polka Dot Door. Now,
Yeah.
did you guys realize, we're almost out of time here, but did you guys realize that how much of an influence you guys would have on Canadian culture, on people when you guys were doing the show?
Well, I didn't realize until like maybe it was like 5 or 6 years after, no, maybe more. I was doing an industrial gig for an auto company, and we had just finished rehearsing. I had no makeup on. I was in my grubby rehearsal clothes, and this woman and her children have walked by and said, "Hey, were you on Polka Dot Door?" We were in Winnipeg, by the way, Winnipeg. So not even in Ontario, but in Winnipeg. And she recognized me. I said, "Yes, I can't believe you recognized me when I look like this." She said, "Oh, no, we watched. We always watched." And she wasn't talking about her kids. She was talking about herself watching it.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So that's why I thought, wow, I had no idea. So it's from other people reflecting or getting a response like that I realized, oh, I guess we had reached. And she had lived in Ontario. That's why she knew it. And she had moved to Winnipeg, but still remembered like all the other. She remembered my partners, who my partners were. Yeah, it was crazy.
The people.
Well, you know what isn't generally known, I'm just going to jump in, is that the show was shown across Canada on the various educational networks, but it was also the first Canadian children's show to go into commercial syndication in the States, which a lot of people aren't aware of. And it did relatively well. It's very hard when you're competing against, as we were in the States, in some markets, you're competing against Full House and the Hollywood shows, which, in a family with kids, and certainly a family where you've got older kids and younger kids, that's where everyone's going to be watching. So we had to deal with that kind of competition. But even in the Toronto market, the Ontario market, Polka Dot Door was regularly in the top 5 shows that were being shown. It had a huge audience, very loyal, huge audience. And I think Jane's point is interesting because a lot of people know it, even though I think when you're making it, you don't really think about it, to be honest. I don't think you think people are going to, recognize me in the street or whatever. And they certainly don't recognize me. But I think it's a surprise, it's a surprise to the performers often. And part of it is because, my belief is that the shows you watch when you're a child are the most important shows you will ever watch in your life. You will keep them with you for your entire life, and they actually shape how you see the world and how you approach the world. And almost everyone that I know can remember shows they watch, like Kevin was saying, when you were a child, and they stay with you, and the performers stay with you.
Well, then I want to say thank you, because you shaped me. All of it. You did. Like I'm so into music now. I'm into harmonies. I sing harmony all the time. I'm into great music. I read stories to my children. I use my own imagination, and that stemmed from watching shows like Polka Dot Door.
And I think it's important to note about the longevity of Polka Dot Door. So the people that you're seeing on your screen today were in the more recent vintage of Polka Dot Door. And so I was involved for 10 seasons, 9 years, thereabouts. So I was in the last part, but the show was on for 30 years. So people knew the show because it was on forever. They saw Polkaroo. They saw all the transitions and all the different hosts. And how many hosts in all, Jed?
Good question. I have no idea.
I counted.
Not a clue.
Oh, Kevin counted. Kevin counted.
I did research. I learned my lesson from before.
How many, Kevin?
As far as I'm able to tell, over the 30 years of Polka Dot Door, there was over 50 hosts.
Wow.
I have to say that has to be a record of some kind.
And we only came together it was always in groups of 2, but it was only on the specials.
Polkaroo Goes Camp.
And Polkaroo's birthday party. I can't believe I have both of them. I bought them. Jane, they didn't give these to me. I bought them.
Nope. No bitterness.
on those on those specials, the group of hosts came together. So we had, Robert and Mishu in the first one, and even looking back at Gordon Thompson and all the former hosts that came back for cameos. And then for the second one, we had Garth and Jim was on that. And who else? But yeah, you were on that. I was on that. Cindy, of course.
Cindy.
When we were contacting you guys to do this show, there was so many people that we wanted to talk to that, again, like I'm going to tell most of the fans on the show know I had to split this show into 2 parts. So we this show we're calling the Jed era. So we're calling it the Jed era. And then we have just a little bit of a preview for the people who are watching for later. We have people coming like Nina Keogh, who was the original host of Polka Dot Door.
Original host, yeah.
The original host of Polka Dot Door. We have Jerry Mendocino coming.
Wow. Jerry.
I was on the phone with him for about 15-20 minutes yesterday. And I have people like Carol Ann Reynolds coming as well.
Yeah.
Clive Endersby, who wrote a lot of the shows. So I have all them coming for the second half, for the first few seasons of Polka Dot Door. I have those coming. Now, that's just a little preview. We got to go because we're running out of time here. But I need to ask a couple things. What's your favorite memory? I know you've told me so many memories of the show. Like, what's your favorite memory of the show?
There's one that comes up for me was during Animal Day. And it was one of the, and Carrie knows about this because Garth was my partner. And we're singing about the animals and the crew. I could see them all breaking out. They're away from the camera, looking, what's going on? And what had happened was that the rabbit was getting quite enamored with the guinea pig. Jen will remember this. And Garth and I were oblivious to what was happening, and the rabbit was chasing this guinea pig, and then the guinea pig showed the rabbit who's boss, and just worried about that rabbit. and then they are all laughing, say cut, and everyone's laughing, and Garth and I are thinking, well, I guess we must have been pretty funny in that take, not knowing what was happening in the little pen in front of us. So anyway, that's a memory that really sticks out in my mind. Jed, do you remember that?
I do. I remember. And the thing was, because the performers have to be looking at the camera. So they can't really see what's happening down here. There's separate cameras on the animals. And my recollection is, I guess it was you guys, but I remember the sequence where we were actually singing a song about what friends the theme was friendship or something. So it was kind of like, what was there was Barney and GP. So it's kind of like, Barney is the friend, a very lovely friend, and he loves GP. And meanwhile, they're looking at each other. I think it was that one, and there was another one where I believe there was one as well where it was one of them, the rabbit, I think, wanted food that the guinea pig had or something. They ended up, one of them drew blood, I think, while we're singing a lovely song. So
I'm pretty sure that's where UFC got the idea for cage matches. Was watching Polka Dot Door.
Origins of UFC, just Canadian children's programming.
Yeah.
Oh geez! Oh, my video's gone again.
Guys,
I think that the stories with the animals were obviously, with the Pats, were obviously the most funny. I think that's where I lost it the most and laughed the most. But I really think for me, if I look back, probably the most amazing moments were the musical ones. And when I would get a script in advance and I would find an opportunity that, this is going to be beautiful. And, I saw the song and could hear the harmonies in my head and how John would play all these major seventh chords, and it was going to be lush and gorgeous. And so for me, it had a lot to do with looking for those amazing moments where we could do some Gilbert and Sullivan, or I know Garth and I got to do in the final, do you remember, was it Boom Boom, Great to Be Crazy or something? I got to be float up to a high soprano thing, and Garth got to do a jazzy vocal thing. So I always just love those amazing, I love the funny moments, but I think the musical moments really with Jed's songs and John's playing and this singer is great fun.
Yeah. Can I throw one thing in, Kevin, before we go?
Anything you
I
want,
think
man.
it's important to all. You'll hear this with the next group we're going to do. And you know that I wrote for the show starting in 1975, right? So I'm one of the people who bridged the TED era and the Jed era.
You're welcome to come back.
Yeah, but what I wanted to say was that the show won an award called the Masterworks Award at the Gemini Awards, which is for the whole arc of the series. And so Ted Coneybear, who was the producer that I knew, from all through the 70s to the mid 80s, and I were the recipients of it. And at that award, when I made the little thank you speech, the one thing I said was that children never had a better friend than Ted Coneybear, because everything I was doing came from working with him and learning about his approach. Ted was a genius in his own way about certainly the arts and crafts and children and what children would like, how you should approach the child. So I just want to give him a little shout out, because everything we were doing was built on what came, the show was actually on for, I think it's 23 years. It was 71 or 72 to about 93. And everything we did was building on what had been learned, what I had learned, certainly when I got into being a producer, from that earlier crew, and from Ted particularly. I could name a lot of names behind the scenes, names Ruth Vernon, another great supporter that were very important to us. So I just want to throw that in.
I have a Ruth.
There she is.
There she is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, terrific person.
Now, as of this recording, we're recording on a Thursday. And well, in the lexicon of Polka Dot Door, I believe it was Thursdays was Imagination Day. And you never know who could show up on Imagination Day.
Oh!
Never know who could show up on Imagination Day.
Oh my goodness.
Who's that on your shoulder, Kevin?
Oh, it's Polkaroo!
Polkaroo!
Polkaroo.
Polkaroo.
Oh man. So thank you guys. Thank you very much. Jim, is this your first time seeing Polkaroo? Is this your first
Yeah,
time?
he missed him
was
every
here
other
and I
time.
missed
know
him
that.
again. I've
missing
never
him.
seen him. That's the odd thing. First time. Hi, Polkaroo.
Thank you guys. Thank you very, very much for doing this. It has been such an honor to speak with you and just reminisce through Polka Dot Door and my memories of Polka Dot Door and your memories of Polka Dot Door. It's just been phenomenal. Thank you guys very, very much for this.
This is a pleasure. Great seeing everybody.
Yeah, great seeing everyone. Oh,
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, amazing to see all you guys again.
Thank you guys very much, and I will see you guys next time on another episode of today's podcast.
Polka dot door, the polka dot door. See you soon at the polka dot door for songs and stories and so much more. Through the polka dot door.